This is MSJ Chem. In this video, I'll be looking at some exam tips for the IB Chemistry exam. So let's start with Paper 1. Paper 1 has 30 or 40 multiple choice questions to be completed in 45 or 60 minutes. This gives 90 seconds per question. The questions are arranged in order of the topics, 1 to 11 for core or 1 to 21 for core and higher level. It's a good idea to leave questions that require calculations to the end of the paper, so you don't spend too much time on one question. Usually, questions from topic 1, which is stoichiometric relationships, require calculations. Remember that a calculator and data booklet are not allowed for paper 1. So if you're not confident with calculations, I recommend leaving them to the end of the paper. This way you don't spend too much time on these type of questions, which leaves you short on time for other questions. Each question has 4 possible answers, A, B, C, or D, with only one correct answer. Don't leave any questions unanswered. No marks are deducted for wrong answers, so if you don't know the answer, then take a guess. Another method is to use a process of elimination to eliminate the incorrect choices, hopefully leaving you with the correct one. Next, we look at Paper 2. Paper 2 usually starts with a question that requires calculations. Make sure you are confident with calculating amounts in moles, converting from grams to moles, and calculations involving solutions. In other words, it's a good idea to have a good understanding of stoichiometry. You should also be careful with significant figures and decimal places, especially if mentioned in the question. It's a good idea to double-check calculations to avoid making simple calculation errors. Another important tip is to be familiar with the chemistry data booklet. Make sure you know where to find important equations and where to find commonly used data, such as bond enthalpies. So you should take time to familiarize yourself with the IB data booklet before the exam. You should also be familiar with the IB command terms, as these give you an idea of the level of detail required for the answer. These can be found in the IB Chemistry Guide. And finally, for Paper 2, make sure you write inside the box on the exam paper. Answers written outside the box may not be marked. And finally, we look at some tips for Paper 3. For Section A, it's important to review the list of prescribed practicals. This is a list of experiments given by the IB that students need to be familiar with. For Section A, practice calculations such as calculating empirical formula, molar mass of gases, and enthalpy changes. Also make sure that you are able to analyze graphs and draw lines of best fit. This also applies to Paper 2. You should also be familiar with sources of error for each experiment, such as heat loss to the surroundings in an experiment to determine an enthalpy change. And finally, for Section B, answer questions from one option only, either A, B, C, or D. So we'll end the video with some general exam tips. In my opinion, the best thing a student can do is practice using past exam papers and mark schemes. Your teacher should be able to provide you with some examples. It's also important to use the correct terminology when answering questions. When necessary, draw clearly labeled and neat diagrams. It's also very important to write legibly. Examiners find it difficult to read messy writing. And finally, make sure that you review all areas of the syllabus, including the options and topics 10 and 11. So that's all from this video. In the next video, we'll be looking at areas of difficulty taken from the subject reports.